Good morning, freedom fighters. Do a little different video this morning. I want to go back in time to the early 1900s when rainmaking was a legal occupation. Charles Hatfield is one of the most famous floods ever happened in California. He seems to be the perpetrator of it. He created it on purpose. He was paid to create it. His occupation today on Wikipedia is still rainmaker when they claim it doesn't exist. But I want to tell you his story of the Hatfield flood. He made it rain like 200 inches in one day in a desert, and we're seeing astronomical floods like we've never seen before. So quick, it's not funny. He's very much a real person, and rainmaking was very much a real occupation back in the early 1900s. Then the government stepped in and outlawed it because they were going to manipulate the weather from then on. Stay tuned for an incredible story about Charles Hatfield. Then I'm going to move on to some other information. Thank you, warriors. For some reason, this lady has completely removed her video from her site. I think it hit the nail on the head. Why? But she has an interesting story why she found it. And yes, it's a real event in the history that was created by man, a weather event. Stand by for some incredible truth this video. I'm going to go back through history of events.
Across this while looking into the reported hauntings of the Las Americas premium outlets in San Diego for a TikTok post. There's a link to my TikTok in the description. They say the outlets are haunted because of the 80 people who died at the site in 1916. So I was looking into that event and found this rainmaker at the bottom of the online research rabbit hole. It was interesting, so I thought I would make a video sharing the story. This rainmaker, named Charles Hatfield, was born in Kansas and came to San Diego as a child in the late 1800s. At that time, several scientists were trying to create rain by exploding hydrogen balloons into clouds. After the Civil War, Edward Powers, a general from the war, noticed that rain often followed battles. He even published a book about it and argued that the noise from the explosions of weapons agitated the moisture in the air, eventually leading to rain. And he wasn't alone in this belief. Even the ancient Greek writer Plutarch noticed that battles might create rain, and Napoleon tried to create rain with explosives as well. But Powers' book introduced the idea to a new generation of Americans struggling with drought, and although most scientists did not take it seriously, some government officials did. An Illinois senator proposed a bill to fund rainmaking research, and although it was shot down by the House, the Senate ended up getting it passed. And so $17,000, that's over $500,000 today, subsidized several inventors around the country in their efforts to create rain. Most of the experiments took place in the central states. Kansas saw a few notable rainmakers, such as Melbourne the Rain Wizard. Melbourne's tactic was to create a gas on the ground that would then rise and agitate the air that way. He was once hired by a town in Kansas for $500, which is over $5,000 today, to end their drought. For days he tried, but no luck. The town eventually gave up on him and refused to pay him the money. However, a strong wind had been blowing his rain-making gases to Goodland, the next town over, and they did actually receive rain. They became avid supporters of Melbourne and his abilities. In Grand Island, Nebraska, he again claimed to have created rain, and again, just not at the intended location. According to Melbourne, he never shared his secret, but others claimed to know it. An entire group of people in Kansas formed a company around the idea, calling themselves the Interstate Artificial Rain Company. The government also ran tests in Texas. They too apparently created rain, but it was also displaced to a neighboring location by the wind. Nothing more than a light sprinkle came from some experiments, and in others, the rain had already been forecast. Parts of California also experienced drought conditions. Farmers were hiring water witches, and the Rain on Request company was offering its rainmaking services by ionizing the air. But in all of these places, whether Kansas, Texas, or California, all of these water production services were little more than cons, coincidental and unreliable. Now back to Charles Hatfield. He was originally a sewing machine salesman, but he became interested in rainmaking after hearing about some of these other experiments. He realized that dust storms were often followed by rain too, so he thought maybe shooting particles similar to dust in the air would help rain form. In 1903, at the age of 27, he set up his lab at the top of his father's windmill. The neighbors complained about the weird science he was doing, but his family said that he was just a kid trying to stop the drought and they should just let him be. One day, Hatfield sent a dark cloud of smoke up into the fog hanging over his family's ranch, and it did rain immediately after. He apparently successfully repeated the experiment in 16 out of 17 subsequent attempts at his family's ranch. Hatfield then turned professional and used these methods to create rain for Los Angeles for $50, over $1,500 today. Over the course of the next several years, he fulfilled 17 rainmaking contracts for everyone ranging from cotton farmers in Texas to miners in Alaska. In 1912 alone, he made $13,000 creating rain for various communities. That's worth almost $400,000 today. Now let's skip to the main event in 1915. This was the year of the Panama, California Exposition, an international event that had attracted millions of visitors over the span of the year. It was so successful that they expanded the exposition to last through 1916 as well, and they were expecting the same turnout of millions of people. However, some San Diego leaders were concerned about their water levels. The dams in the city were doing fine, but one of the dams in the countryside, in Morena, just outside the city, was running low, at only a third of its capacity. So they hired Charles Hatfield to make rain. They offered him $10,000, almost $300,000 today, if he could fill the reservoir in the next year. They figured why not let him try? Since they wouldn't pay him unless he did, they had nothing to lose. So December 1915, Hatfield built a 20-foot tower in the woods near the reservoir and set to work. People say that his tower resounded with faint explosions and filled the area with the odor of smelly cheese. And then on January 1st of 1916, New Year's Day, an explosion sent the first puff of smoke up into the atmosphere. A light drizzle followed almost immediately, but not really any rain. At least not until a few days later on January 5th, when it rained just a little at the reservoir. A few days after that, on January 10th, things took a turn. For a full day, it rained off and on in San Diego city limits. But in the countryside, it poured, and almost continually, for over a week. In the mountains, blizzards wreaked havoc. In the lowlands, storm drains flooded and roofs leaked. Some places saw as much as 18 inches of rain. The city of San Diego was thrilled with their own portion of rain until January 17th brought news of disasters in the countryside. The dry bed of the San Diego River had become flooded with torrents of water. It swept through the countryside, completely washing away homes, barns, ranches, historic missions, bridges, and even entire herds of cattle and other livestock. Several people were killed. South of the city was a community called the Little Landers, who were trying to build their own little utopian society, and the community was entirely washed away by the floods. A few days later, on January 20th, Charles Hatfield called San Diego City Hall. He said that the reservoir in Morena was almost filled to the brim and would be in a couple days, and that he would like his $10,000. Some newspapers at the time were claiming that he didn't actually cause the storm, but he argued that it had never naturally rained this much in the area, and it only continued to rain. The next day on January 21st, the Colorado River started to rise. The day after that, January 22nd, the river's levees broke and flooded the town of Yuma, Arizona, destroying 100 buildings. On January 23rd, the water levels began to rise in the Otay River in Chula Vista to the southeast of the city. On January 24th, the storm stopped, and the sun came out. The people of San Diego thought they might be in the clear. But on January 25th, the rain started again, with a vengeance. On January 26th, one of the reservoirs overflowed all protective barriers and washed away neighborhoods in the northern end of the city down to the concrete foundations. January 27th, the Otay Dam broke and completely flooded its valley. Absolutely nothing was left. No foundations and no survivors and no corpses were found in the floodwaters. They estimate 50 people died in that one flood burst alone. The National Weather Service has declared the 1916 flood the most destructive and deadly weather event San Diego has seen in all its history. The city estimated about $8 million in damages, which is about $200 million today. Locals took to calling it Hatfield's Flood. But despite everything, all of the death and damage and destruction, Hatfield still took credit for the storm. Even though there were rumors that lynch mobs were looking for him in the days following the floods, he went to City Hall in San Diego and asked for his $10,000. The Moreno Reservoir was certainly filled. However, the city refused to pay him. They claimed that they had only made a verbal agreement and that since there was no official contract, they owed Hatfield nothing. Hatfield then sued them, adding that he would be happy with the money as a settlement. The city replied that they would be willing to give him the $10,000, but only if he took legal responsibility for the damages of the flood as well. Hatfield turned down the offer. Of course he did, since responsibility for the $8 million in damages was not worth the $10,000 in payment, and he eventually dropped the issue entirely. There was still the question, however, as to whether or not Hatfield had in fact been responsible for the rainfall. Individuals sued the city over the damages and hardship, claiming that since the city had hired Hatfield, they were thus responsible. But the courts ruled that the storm had been an act of God, and Hatfield was just a coincidence. After all, although the rain had come in unprecedented amounts, January was the rainiest part of the year for the area. But while many doubted Hatfield's connection to the storm, many also believed him. He got a lot of job offers, but he did not accept any new jobs for several years until 1922, instead taking some time to further his experiments and figure out what had gone wrong to create the flood and refine his methods. On January 31st, 1922, he tried again to create rain in the Mojave Desert. They say 240 inches of rain fell in just 30 minutes. The desert flooded, Sand Canyon north of LA was flooded, and the LA aqueduct was almost destroyed. After this new disaster, Hatfield declared that he was retiring and would not meddle with natural forces like that again. But again, he was still offered contracts to create rain for many years. He did take up one offer, however, when a banana company based out of New Orleans asked for his services to put out a raging fire on their banana plantations in Honduras. Rain fell and put out the fires 3 days after Hatfield arrived and started his work there. But after that, he completely retired, and he died decades later in 1958. And so that's the story of Charles Hatfield the Rainmaker and of his San Diego flood of 1916. The urban legend of San Diego hiring a rainmaker is true, but the legend that the rainmaker actually created rain and floods, I'll leave that one up for you to decide if that's true. As I said, I found this story through researching a San Diego haunting for a TikTok post. If you want to hear more about that and other places haunted by the victims of this flood, you can check out my TikTok. It's linked in the description. And I'll be back here on my YouTube with another video about a creepy haunted place soon, so...
Sad I can't find her video now. When I click on it, it just says video unavailable. That's such a great video. She did such a great job. We are witnessing the largest book burning on the planet, and no one even seen it happen. The internet has been removed so many ways. Not the internet that I used to have, Even just okay, I had made this video a little while back, but that's exactly right. If you look up anything on the internet, it would say 1 billion results or whatever, and when you go through it, it's only 300-400, and it's their stuff. We're no longer seeing the people's work. Okay, that was 1916. This is the late 20s with biplanes releasing chemicals from an aircraft. You know what I mean? No matter what they're releasing or why they're releasing, they are releasing chemicals from an aircraft. 1929.
What you're about to see is pretty surreal. No, it's not a special effect from a modern day movie. It's footage of a plane laying a smoke screen sometime in the 1920s. As stated at the beginning of the video, one reason that the air service would do this is to hide the bombing plane from the enemy ship, so the enemy ship couldn't fire on it. Another reason these smoke screens, or smoke curtains as they were sometimes called, were used is to hide a ship from an attacking sub. While the ship is safely hidden behind the smoke curtain, bombers could come in and attack the sub. These naval smoke screens were created by releasing the volatile liquid titanium tetrachloride. When it hits the ocean air, it forms these magnificent dense clouds of titanium dioxide and hydrated hydrogen chloride. The hydrogen chloride immediately absorbs moisture from the air to form an aerosol of hydrochloric acid that scatters light. The highly refractive titanium dioxide is also effective at scattering the light. Ships were probably advised not to go through the smoke since it's highly corrosive. It's not something you'd want to breathe in. Not only can it damage your lungs, it can damage your eyes and lead to surface skin burns. Nonetheless, it created an effective smokescreen that looks pretty cool.
Okay, that was 1920s. Now we're going to an interview I seen not an interview, just some kids coming out of Woodstock and wanting to know why the government was spraying clouds and created this massive storm that we all know about Woodstock went through. But what if they created that storm to disrupt the concert itself? This is how devious this weather control as a weapon truly is. And I got a newspaper article from 1953 saying weather as a weapon. But here is an event that I believe was also created by man to disrupt an event.
I got something to say. I want to know how come the fascist pigs have been seeding the clouds. Right. Last hour and the airplanes going over twice with all the smoke coming out of them seeding the clouds. And I want to know, why that stuff is going down, man. And why doesn't the media report that stuff to the people, man? I'm telling you what happened. The planes come over for an hour and a half and they seeded all the clouds. It's the second time they did that. People of unknown origin were seeding the clouds over the I don't know what they hope to prove, man.
Project Storm Fury assembles a team of highly trained scientists and technicians to fly into mature hurricanes.
Scientists working on the project were convinced that they could reduce hurricane devastation using a process called cloud seeding by spraying the thunderclouds inside the hurricane with a chemical called silver iodide. This would become known as the Storm Fury hypothesis.
The seeding planes fly across the eye and into these clouds, seeding the supercooled water droplets from the belt of maximum winds outwards.
As the silver iodide turns the supercooled water into ice, the heat released during this process causes the seeded clouds to grow and develop into a new outer eye wall. At that time, the United States Army were in Vietnam. Pierre Saint-Amand was part of the team assembled in a top-secret cloud seeding operation known simply as Project Popeye. In May 1967, as monsoon clouds developed over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, Armand and his team put their new weapon to the test.
We ejected the material so that it fell into the growing part of the cloud, and it rained very heavily out of it, and everybody was convinced with that one experiment that we'd had done enough.
Project Popeye had opened the door to a new and dangerous type of warfare.
Some said, if you control the weather, you can control the world. Military planners imagined loading the clouds with radiological, biological, or chemical agents and having them rain.
Okay, my friends, I'm going to continue with this video here. That was some weather experiments, but they've been experimenting on the human population for a very long time. It is very much legal for our government to experiment on its own people. As insane as that sounds, and how we approve that, I don't know. But here's a few just local experiments, and then a weatherman claiming how they can create storms with lasers. They're scientists, one of their actors. But incredible information they have hid from the public is why I want to show you this section.
This next story is so unbelievable we didn't think it could possibly be true. But after receiving thousands of records and declassified reports from the Army, it's confirmed that during the Cold War, the United States military conducted secret tests on unsuspecting people in the city of St. Louis.
Lisa Martino-Taylor's life work has been to uncover details of the Army's ultra-secret military experiments carried out in St. Louis and other cities during the 1950s and 60s.
This study was secretive for a reason. They didn't have volunteers stepping up and saying, yeah, I'll breathe zinc cadmium sulfide with radioactive particles.
These Army archive pictures show how the tests were done in Corpus Christi, Texas in the 1960s. In Texas, planes were used to drop the chemical, but in St. Louis, the Army placed chemical sprayers on buildings and station wagons. City officials were kept in the dark about the tests. The Cold War cover story was that the Army was testing smoke screens to protect cities from a Russian attack.
Clearly, they went to great lengths to deceive people.
By making hundreds of Freedom of Information Act requests, she uncovered once classified documents that confirmed the spraying of zinc cadmium sulfide.
The greatest concentration of this compound was sprayed near the Pruitt-Igoe housing complex just south of downtown St. Louis. It was home to 10,000 low-income people, and an estimated 70% were under the age of 12.
Martino Taylor claims they all unknowingly inhaled this compound morning, noon, and night so the government could measure its effects on their lungs.
So this was in violation of all medical ethics, all international codes, and the military's own policy at that time.
And Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez has once again accused the United States of playing God. This time it's Haiti's disastrous earthquake that he thinks the U.S. was behind. Spanish newspaper ABC quotes Chavez as saying that the U.S. Navy launched a weapon capable of inducing a powerful earthquake off the shore of Haiti. He adds that this time it was only a drill, and the final target is destroying and taking over Iran.
A wild accusation from Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. He says Western countries are causing drought in certain parts of the world, including Iran. He says they're using high-tech equipment to drain raindrops from clouds. He basically says European countries are stealing rain from Iran for their own use.
You know, they were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning.
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, bringing down rain and even lightning.
I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. They precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam. The bad news is, if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all, because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Terrorists no longer the CIA's only priority. The U.S. intel agency now investing in weather?
Well, they're looking into something called climate engineering or geoengineering, which is a way to manipulate the climate to mitigate the effects of global warming. And they think that maybe this might pose a national security threat in the form of exacerbating water shortages or causing more regional instability in places like Darfur or in India-Pakistan region, in the Kashmir region. So they want to find ways of mitigating climate change, and they're investigating, are there possible ways of doing that? Scientists have been researching this have been thinking about this for quite some time. There are two general ways of engineering the climate. One is called solar radiation management, which is putting particles into the atmosphere. So like if you think of a volcano explodes and it releases particles and that cools down the planet. So that's one way. You can put a balloon up in the atmosphere and spray particles. And then another way would be to possibly bring down carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere in a process called carbon capture and storage. They're basically funding research by the National Academy of Sciences.
Okay, so the CIA is not trying to control the weather. We've tried that before and it doesn't really work, but they're trying to impact climate change.
They want to have a lot of tools in the arsenal in case climate change is as bad as some scientists believe it is. They want to have a way of mitigating it.
You told one of our producers at this point it's pretty doubtful this is a viable terror threat right now.
I don't see I don't see the CIA. Yeah, I don't think that it's going to be an immediate threat. It's definitely something that's going to be a long-term, decades down the line.
Let me put it this way. They are the threat. They are the climate change. And all of this madness needs to be shut down, just like this guy here that's got a mineral vitamin deficiency going on. Dark rings around the eye is a nutritional deficiency. Moving on. Enough of these lunatics. Okay, the next couple we're going to show you is John here talking about it's a $10 billion a year operation. They're admitting to it, guys. As much as they put fake fact checkers on Twitter and Facebook denying all this shit, they admit it if you look at the evidence. He says it's a $10 billion a year investment. And then it's going to move on to HAARP and the technology that's these sprayers are just the aluminum wires in the sky. HAARP is the key to everything. All these cell phone towers I see they're putting up are massive. They have nothing to do with cell phone. Moving on here.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. Now I could go on and on and on and on.
Let's not go on with your lies. Now, fossil fuel is another big lie. He just mentioned fossil fuels. That is just the liquid of the earth, just like water. There's no fossils involved in oil at all. But we're going to continue here, and they're going to go right to the HAARP network. That's in Alaska, but it's in Peru, it's in Japan, it's in Australia. They have it worldwide. The one in Peru is gigantic. It's way bigger than the one in Alaska.
About the things that fascinate me, but rather than talk about them, I thought I'd stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. The Air Force has gotten great value out of HAARP in the past. We took it over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there and have finished our work that we're interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HAARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere, be able to actually control it. And but that work has been completed. The Air Force has maintained the site for other government agencies to use for several years now. And with DARPA completing their project, that's our last government customer that we have in the site. We have put out a call for other agencies that had interest in managing the site or taking it over, and including going out to academia.
International corporations are modifying our weather all the time, and they're modifying it in ways that cover thousands and thousands of square miles. Programs are impacting microclimates needed for our crops to survive and needed for pollination. The other issue is that a lot of times we're talking about mitigation for climate change. It's rather an undefined term at this period of time. And so what happens is that many times we're talking about artificially putting chemicals like sulfur or particulates into the atmosphere in what they call geoengineering schemes to reduce, supposedly, global warming. And if you take and you put up into our skies chemicals to reduce the amount of sunlight reaching the earth, you are going to begin to reduce crop production. Without the process of photosynthesis, whereby plants from direct sunlight gain the energy to grow, to produce crops, we are going to find ourselves, if we mitigate in that direction, impacting the crop production not only here in the United States, but worldwide. What you're seeing now, a lot of times many scientists know, especially at NASA and in other areas, that the skies that we're seeing are not normal cloud formations. These are man-made. In California, the State Department of Health drinking water tests were examined between 1970 and this year, and we found unusual spiking in barium, aluminum, strontium, manganese, and all of these spiked at the same time in various drinking water supplies across the state of California and also in Arizona. So what's happening with these atmospheric tests is that aluminum, as one example, gets into the root systems of our trees, and it looks like the trees are dying of drought, but they're not. Many of our forests in Redding, California and other areas are dying from warmer temperatures produced by persistent jet contrails, also impacting tree health and crop health. They know from scientific studies back in the 1970s that they deplete beneficial ozone in the atmosphere by releasing nitric acid.
The death dumps, otherwise known as chemical trails, are being dropped and sprayed throughout the United States, in England, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Europe, and I have personally seen them not only in the United States but in Mexico and Canada. Birds are dying around the world. Fish are dying by the hundreds of thousands around the world. This is genocide. This is poison. This is murder by the United Nations. This element within our society that's doing this must be stopped. I personally have observed the planes in Lincoln, Nebraska at the Air National Guard. They have no markings on them. They're huge, bomber-like airplanes with no markings. This is a crime. Crime against humanity, crime against America, crime against the citizens of this great country. What is wrong with Congress? This has an effect on their population and their people and their friends and their relatives and themselves. What's wrong with the pilots who are flying these airplanes? They're dumping this crap, this poison, on their own families. Somebody in Congress has to step forward and stop it now. Thank you. I'm Ted Gunderson.
I conducted air sampling, I conducted soil sampling, and I was getting high levels of these contaminants. When I started asking the question again under a new commander, I never in my life thought I would have somebody look me in the face and tell me, "Is there something wrong with you? You've been looking really depressed lately. You know I can put you under a mental evaluation for up to 120 days. Who would take care of your daughter?" Because I was divorced at the time. As soon as I heard that, I knew. It validated everything I ever thought. And I thought, I've spent 9 years of my life trying to protect human health, and here we are violating law after law after law. Just sitting here, instead of protecting the people, we are poisoning the people. And you ask yourself, if this is true and we are spraying the people, where are the pilots? Where are the people? I don't know if you pay attention, but look at Snowden. Look at Manning. People don't come forward because these supposed Whistleblower Act protections that you have are not enforced, they're not supported, and they really don't exist. Geoengineering is occurring, it's been occurring, it is not new, and your tax dollars are funding this. So it is unethical every day for all the other people that are out there that work in preventive health, or even physicians that aren't speaking about this. They need to. The biggest hurdle that we have is disinformation sites. I never say them, but I'm going to today, so that you know if anyone ever gives these to you as a reference to debunk you, it's Metabunk and Contrail Science. Those are two websites that are ran by a government shill named Mick West. He is a computer gaming programmer who tries to tell you about persistent contrails. So somebody who isn't even credentialed in chemistry or physics or ecology, none of that, is trying to tell you that you're crazy. You have to understand that I have met people who used to be purposeful disinformation trolls, as we call them. These people are paid to get you on board to believe a website or an article. So I just want everyone to know and understand that of all things, of all the freedoms that we are losing, geoengineering is the #1 issue that we are facing. Because you can have guns and money and you can have everything. If you don't have food and water and you are dying of respiratory or neurological illnesses, what does it matter? So you've heard about vaccines and you'll hear, about smart meters and you'll hear about other issues. These are all systemic effects. We are getting overexposed to toxins. People will tell you fluoride's in the water, but it's not a lot. It is a lot because you're getting it everywhere in your food, water that you drink, and you're getting it in your vaccines. Our bodies cannot metabolize these toxins.
There's the debate. Is it a condensation trail or a chemical trail, something with an additive in it? And I couldn't bite the chemical trail issue for a long time. Give me a reason, give me a motive. And so I started time-lapsing the sky. And there was this one day where I saw a series of planes go by, but one trail persisted and the others didn't. And as that trail slowly faded away, 2 other planes came along. One hit the exact end of it, and another went through the middle. How could these planes be aware of, or better yet, even be remotely concerned with what's going on with the debris from another plane? And as I time-lapsed the sky more and more and more, and in higher and higher resolution as the technology improved, was a godsend, because you could see even the little planes were part of the bigger program. So they had to be at a precise place at an exact time to reveal a disturbance in a trail that may have only been in the sky 10 seconds.
It went beyond correlation.
And we're dealing with a massive, massive ballet in the sky.
Yeah.
We've got a program that is loose on the planet and is this guise of climate change, but it is this program we're seeing at work. As I became more aware of technologies, I looked at these clouds, at these patterns with different eyes, with a different understanding. And what I've learned is that these chemtrails help the technology align these patterns, align these vibrational structures which direct our weather today.
When I found out about this first, I couldn't believe that I had never seen it before, because I'm from County Wexford, which is known as the sunny southeast in Ireland, and we have always boasted the highest sunshine hours in the country, and we are also underneath one of the busiest air corridors in the world. When I started to find out about chemtrails, I started to look up, and I realized that yeah, these trails do linger all day, and they go horizon to horizon, and you look to your old photographs and you don't see these kind of trails. So I suppose when the penny dropped was when I saw what in the world are they spraying. That's really when this whole thing kind of made sense to me, because it was explained in a documentary. People knew what they were talking about, and this made a lot of sense. You know, this is a government program to control the weather, and if you think about it, if you want to dominate and control the planet, this is the ultimate weapon to do that. So the Irish media now are normalising weaponised air as a reality that we must get used to. They are blaming car emissions and coal pollution, but there's no mention of the elephant in the room, the hundreds of millions of tons of substances being sprayed into our atmosphere every year, like aluminium oxide, which David Keith and other geoengineering proponents are proposing spraying into our skies. They will never admit these programs are going on, but we know they are going on because 2004, the Civil Aviation Authority in the UK conducted an investigation into cabin air quality, and one of the peak materials found was aluminium. So what the hell is aluminium doing floating around up at cruising altitude? So now Monsanto miraculously have an aluminium resistant seed that can grow in aluminium contaminated soil. Why would they have such a thing unless they knew of a problem that was down the line or already happening? Last year in 2015, a study came out of Keele University in the UK, and bees were found to have had massive high quantities of aluminium in their brains. This is a big problem. We need bees to keep the food chain sustained and to keep it alive. And now Monsanto have recently bought a bee research company called Biologics in 2012. And they have genetically modified a bee that can only pollinate Monsanto crops. And also, this bee is resistant to all pesticides. So why would they want to design such a Frankenstein creation unless they knew of a problem that already existed or a problem that was in the pipeline? Dementia now is the biggest killer in women in the UK. And what's the main cause of dementia? Aluminium accumulation in the brain cells. We are in the fight of our lives. All sources needed for life to exist are under direct attack from these programs. Oxygen, sunlight, and water. Once you know about this, you have a duty of care to get involved. As a caretaker of this planet, we must all come together to stop these programs, because we can do it. Once you find out this is going on, you understand that the air you breathe is being compromised. Things don't get any worse than that. You're standing at the end of the plank. What else do? You got to take action. Otherwise, you are condoning what's going on. Silence is compliance. So we got to speak out.
We spend a lot of time outside.
Okay, my warrior friends, there's some incredible information on this full documentary. I leave it quite often. Let's see. Yeah, there's looking for the link. Okay, my friends, that was just a few clips from Under the Weather full modification documentary. I write as Under Their Weather. Sometimes you'll see me do a little extra. Incredible video. It's not been seen near enough. Carp hunters. I will leave a link. I'll leave a link to this video in every one of my videos in the comment section. Okay, I'm going to leave y'all. Only the real warriors are here at 40 minutes, but this is the largest chemtrail operation I have ever recorded from satellite. And I believe this was October 20th of 2023, if I'm not mistaken. a year and a half ago. But each one of these lines is a chemtrail event from an aircraft pumping out material that I wonder why all my mom's sick and a lot of my friends are battling arthritis. The most unhealthy human population with all this medical. When are we going to wake up to the truth of what's truly happening here? It's on silent. I can just put it in play. But individual aircraft spraying our entire southeastern United States. One of the heaviest geoengineering attacks I had ever seen. And we wonder why there's no birds. All right, we got birds. We're feeding them. But it's not like my youth. No insects compared to my youth. I don't hardly see a grasshopper besides these big locusts I see every once in a while. Our inshore fisheries is all but completely gone. When are we going to step in and fight this? I can't get anyone to seem to care more than 5 minutes, and then they just, well, what can we do? Well, if I had 400,000 people or 4 million people, there's something we can do about it. But 4 people, nothing I can do. I can't even get anybody to care, you know what I mean? But each one of my friends can have been helping in this, become part of it. We create a chapter in each state. I got my friends in Alaska telling me they don't want to hear about weather anymore as they flood us with 5 feet of water. It's attacks. It's disgusting, the hypnosis that's going on, and the food and everything, the lethargic people I see. I don't know what even my mother has been consuming, but it's not the same woman I grew up with. You know what I mean? The food has done something to the population, the water, whatever, the air we're breathing. I know I'm in more pain than my grandfather ever dreamed of at this age. My grandpa worked me to death in his 70s, and I'll be lucky to make it there because of all these geoengineering fallout that I am breathing in. I'm going to move to next, just a fallout from this day, I believe. Just last year was amazing fallout as well. But this was the largest attack over the southeastern United States I ever witnessed at this time. Thank you, Warriors, at 42 minutes. Y'all have been with me the whole entire time, and I appreciate y'all. I know it's just a small amount of us that cares, but our voices will ring in their ears in the end, and they will ask us, why didn't somebody tell us? I've been screaming for years. Nobody's paying attention. Let's move on. I want to show you a fallout video of these chemicals falling, and then I'm going to just close this video. It's 43 minutes. It'd be almost an hour today. Records are being set here. I haven't made an hour video in a while. I hope people are standing by with me. Let's move on to the fallout. I think this is last year, so it's not the same night. But these particles reflect light like I've never seen before. And when I pause it, you can see what I mean. The streamers from a single dust particle. And I wonder why I'm sick. Aches and shoulder pain. I have worked hard my whole life. I can see my joints are wore out, but there's something else going on here. You cannot breathe these kind of materials in for very long. And I quit smoking cigarettes almost 6 years ago. This February will be 6 years. Trying to take care of myself while they poison us. You know what I mean? People don't understand why I'm so angry all the time and try to completely talk about it when I see somebody constantly. Got a little better there. But thank you to the Warriors at 45 minutes. I'm going to let this play. It's only a minute long. Let's start it over. Hey guys, I want to make a second video of the dust particles. The wind, here, let me get it right. The wind's really blowing now. But look how much dust particles I am breathing in, even with the high wind. Absolutely incredible what is blowing by the boat right now. Heavy south wind right now. And it's still solid dust particles in the air. Has nothing to do with any industry. No industry out here. We're in the Gulf of Mexico. They're poisoning me, guys. All of us, not just me. Florida was heavily chemtrailed today. Heavily chemtrailed in Florida. Louisiana was heavily chemtrailed yesterday. They're poisoning us, guys. This is chemtrail fallout in the Gulf of Mexico. I am 5 nautical miles now from Chassahowiska, Florida. There's no industry inshore. It is 30,000 acres of cypress swamp. They're killing me, guys. Standing by. Mute off. I have video after video of chemical fallouts. Even when I'm inshore in my little boat. I am back on Twitter, but it really does no good. A video I posted yesterday, it's 900 views. I don't know if anybody watched it. But the one that I posted on my stuff, I'm just not really getting any views. See. I guess I'm getting more than I'm getting on YouTube. Like I posted this here is the Air Force multiplier. We have all the evidence. Like I told my buddy in Alaska, I can go to court with this, but they own all the judges. 1996 describes everything we're seeing today. They own the weather. Trust me, this is correct. I want to play connect the dots, no views. Nobody's paying attention here. When did China take over the United Nations military? Here's his boss. They're shaking his hand for a reason, right? Nobody's paying attention here. Here's the Red Tie Convention of all the ones that's important. China, Russia. They're a little puppet from United States. This is in 2017, right before the pandemic. Nobody's paying attention here. We're being lied to, deceived. These people are not at war with each other. They will kill millions of humans again, like World War II, and own everything when they're done. That'd have been a great day right there for a rock to hit. People are not paying attention here. That's what I mean when they're not letting me out. 19 views. Talking about the 16 million acres in Canada on fire. They don't want certain informations out. Very good post here. Florida's law just went in July 1st. It does no good. We don't regulate above 500 feet. But I am really happy to show that 30-something states has induced bills, 33 states. Louisiana is one of them. They're heavily sprayed. But anti-weather control laws. I just want you to realize how many states are participating in this. Just like Ted Grundy said, this is the United Nations doing this to the United States. And I just showed you their military. Last little bit for you guys. Thank you to everyone. Very heavy flooding in Florida yesterday. They just made rain set over top of places. I see flooding coming out all over the place. See chemtrails over South Carolina this morning. Pretty heavy right there. Straight line clouds are not natural from aircraft. They're always chemtrails. Very unusual spider webs in this storm here that I see in the hurricanes as well because it's man-made. Incredible amount of lightning. Poor people. Don't even realize they're under attack. Just like the Scientists said creating storms with lasers. But I see this spider web pattern in our hurricanes as well. See all the lines from the frequencies? Okay, we're looking at the area now. Let's see how they created this. Hopefully to play without all the glitches. I'm starting to figure it out. If it's still loading, it's just going to be glitchy. Yeah, it still is. Just not going to run. It's so glitchy. It's not going to give me the part I want. But I guess I'll let you go, my friends. They're controlling us in every way, censoring every word we speak, lying with every breath they speak. Our systems are being controlled from the media, the air we breathe, the food we consume, only to make us sick in our minds and our health and our bodies. These are mad scientists controlling the human population, just like Pavlov's dog, if anybody understands that experiment. Commercial fishermen standing by. Please understand, I make these videos to show their evil contents and ways. The devil himself is controlling humans to destroy the planet. How ridiculous could that be? We allowed this to happen. Commercial fisherman out.